So, AI is no longer just assisting teams, it's becoming part of the team. But what happens when an AI agent starts contributing alongside your developers? How do Scrum teams adapt? To help us explore this exciting future, please welcome a certified Scrum trainer, Agile transformation leader, and co-founder of SimplyX's solution, Mr. Vivek Angiras.
Thank you, thank you.
He'll be giving a session on the agent joined your sprint. Now what? Let's welcome Vivek once again with a huge round of applause. Biryani wali taaliyan bajni chahiye.
Thank you.
Over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Paras. Thanks a lot. You guys can hear me okay? Yeah? So the next 25 minutes or so, I would request you to fight the food coma. You know, you've had some amazing food. So stay with me for the next 25 minutes, and you have questions, I'll be around. You can catch me anytime during today's session or tomorrow, and we can have a one-on-one chat. I'll also be trying to hopefully do a live demo. You know, so I've got my hotspot, so hopefully that works, but I also have a recorded version for that. Okay, so something that I heard in the morning, Gaurav talked about, he mentioned about the AI threats from the outside, right? Cybersecurity. And I thought this will complement that talk because this one talks about AI threats from the inside, outside and inside. So really quickly, Vivek Angiras, certified Scrum trainer, been doing this for a while. Now the thing that we have to understand is that pretty much any framework that you are aware of, it generally comes out with a rollout plan, you know. But this one is already writing stories and committing code. And I'll share a story about a fintech startup that I worked with very recently and how they got into a pickle because of that. Yeah. So now I want to ask you something honest, you know, and you don't have to answer it out loud if you wish. It's up to you. You don't have to. Now, all of us use AI tools and agents, yeah? But in the last few sprints, did anyone on your team use an AI tool that the Scrum Master officially did not know about? Yeah? So you can see where this is going, right? The shadow workforce. And that's what the key threat is. You know, what do we really do about it? See, because what's really happening is what you see on the left-hand side. This is what the leadership believes. We approved a tool, we wrote down a policy, we did that AI training session, right? So we all set. It's thorough, it's well-intentioned, and we have a governance in place. Nothing wrong with that. But what's actually happening is what you see on the right-hand side. The agents are already there in your sprints. I'll give you a perfect example. Zoom plus Jira plus integration with an AI tool, you already have a bunch of tickets on the Jira board. So the challenge is a lot of those things are without any owner, there's no audit trail, and there's no authority to say stop. It's happening right now, today. I'm not talking about something 6 months ago, I'm talking today, and I'm working with those teams right now. So the key challenge here is there's no one to override it. And that's the key message that I want to focus on. Now, a couple of definitions first. You would already know this, but something that allows us to level set. Co-pilots versus agents. Co-pilot is something that you would prompt, like an LLM, you know. You write a prompt, it responds, you prompt again, you get an answer again. So you are the person who's initiating the conversation. That's a tool. Versus an agent is more sophisticated, right? It would actually use multiple steps to get to an output without your intervention. You know, for example, read that messy stakeholder email to write a bunch of user stories. or the one that I recently worked with a client, it was based on the user interviews, build a product requirement document that the team can readily consume. It's there, it's right there, it's already happening. So agents are actors versus co-pilots are tools. Now the key difference here is actors need onboarding. Okay, so Monday you go back to work. Yeah? So let's say you have a new colleague joining in. Would you give them production access right away? No, right? I mean, there would be some onboarding steps. Same thing, the actors. You can't just that, oh, we are using windsurf. I remember, I think someone showed the windsurf example, right? So can't just give them that access right away. So the key challenge here is, what happens when there's a mistake that's made? See, when a tool makes a mistake, we fix the tool. But when an actor makes a mistake, we start to ask the question, who authorized it? You know, we are looking for the person behind it. And this is something that I'm figuring out now, working with teams. That's the gray area. And a lot of Scrum teams don't have that answer. Okay, who owns that piece, right? And this is what we are trying to tackle here. And it is not just about making sure that you have an agent that you can prompt, but it's to know what's the right time to actually override it. You know, so that's the critical thing. And I'll try to see if I can, I mean, the demo is actually based on that, the critical point of being able to override the agent. You know, so, but before that, a few things that I want to share. Now, this is something that I recently suggested a team to, you know, to pin it on their Slack channel. Bad process plus AI leads to faster garbage. Happens again and again and again. You know, so I'll share three quick stories we hear. So first of all, we think hallucinations are the real problem. See, hallucinations are just like a bug, like what you would encounter when you're not even using an AI tool. What do? Well, you go back and fix it. So you can't just blame that, well, it hallucinates, so the tool is a problem. The actual challenge is the humans who choose not to override it. You know, it's like saying, well, the AI wrote the acceptance criteria, so I thought it would be right. Has anyone heard that one? Yeah? Acceptance criteria. It's the right one. That's not a sign-off, that's negligence. See, notice the difference. AI wrote it, so I thought it would be right. Yeah? Now what happens when that particular feature shows up in production and there's a bug, it's not the tool that gets blamed, it's the human. You see that connection there? So what's the framework there? If you do not have a clear framework, we'll always be in that gray zone, in the gray area. The second one, this is the classic one. You know, so I used to talk to people that would say, well, what about documentation? We don't have enough documentation. Guess what? We have too much documentation now. You can get whatever documentation you need and so much documentation that no one even reads that anymore. Garbage in, garbage out at machine speed. See, consider this. You have definition of ready. That's the entry criteria, right? So if you do not have a clear readiness criteria, your backlog is a dumping ground. And what is the agent doing? It's creating that at machine speed. Now you have a pool of 200 plausible sounding user stories, but there's no user validated data behind it. And you're too scared, should I even touch it, delete it, remove it? Right? So that's the in part. What about the out part? Well, what about your definition of done? If it is not clear, if it is vague, then you are generating the technical debt at a speed that no human team would be able to handle. Welcome to AI slop. Is anyone dealing with that? Yeah? A lot of technical debt. Tools are supposed to make this better. You're spending so much money and tokens on these. They are supposed to be smarter, but we are still stuck there. And the third part, now this is the critical one because I recently worked with a team and they are dealing with this. Tools are onboarding themselves. So here's a team, this was at a fintech startup, really smart people, you know. moving very fast. And they are using 3 AI coding assistants simultaneously. Windsurf, Cursor, and GitHub Copilot. Simultaneously. I mean, what could go wrong, right? Simultaneously. So, I asked their CTO, so, I mean, who does the quality check? Well, the agent does it. Okay. How about the backlog? Who owns it? Well, the product owner owns it. Okay, that's good. But without missing a beat, he followed up by saying, well, along with that, we have also merged the Scrum Master and product owner into one role. Well, we are saving costs. Now we have one person. And in my head, I was thinking, double the confusion, you know. So, now I got a call last week from that CTO. Before talking about the issue, they were having a production bug. The very first thing he said to me, Vivek, I can't really make a difference between what part of the product was written by my team and what was machine generated. I mean, he was being brutally honest about it. Most people are not. Why was he brutally honest to me about that? Well, because I don't have any vested interest in that company. And I was a person outside. So, they have a production bug in a customer payment flow, and they are trying to trace it back to the code base, but no one knows where to trace it back to. 3 tools touched it, and there was no human accountable. That is the key challenge that a lot of these teams are facing. So it's not about, are we using the latest and greatest tool and agent? The question is there a framework to govern it? And we heard some of you actually talked about that, some of the speakers talk about it, which is great. But I have something very simple to offer here. So I'm going to share a simple framework here. It's a 2-part framework. First, it has to deal with readiness of the humans, and the second is building a registry on it. Something that I saw in the morning, I think someone had this on a slide, that we have over thousands of agents running right now. Okay, now who's managing those? Just managing themselves? You know, what's really happening? So the key rule here is to know, do not onboard an agent unless you have audited the humans. Now I'll repeat that again. Do not onboard an agent unless you have audited the humans. See, the teams are excited. We want to try that latest thing. But excitement does not mean readiness. 2 separate things. If the teams are not ready, excitement will just, remember, garbage in, garbage out, machine speed, that is what tends to happen. So the key rule here is, delegate what's mature, protect what's unstable. Or in very simpler words, the things that your teams are good at, delegate that to the agent. The things that your team's struggling with, that's something that the Scrum Master or the product owner would own. Sounds simple, but still not happening. Now I have 4 things here for you to consider. Most of you are already tracking this, so nothing new about it. We have velocity, we have clarity of the definition of done, we have the backlog health, and the communication. Now take a moment and think about this. The green means that is stable, the red means it is unstable. For your teams that you are working with, do you see any red out of these 4? See some of you nodding your heads, so you do see some red, right? And if you just put the agent to manage that red, the green will also start to turn into red faster. Now that is what I'm noticing. See, what the human is doing there is keeping the red stuff together and trying to see how to get a hold on it. But if you put the agent right there, that is what an agent is doing. It is making sure things are shipping out at machine speed with the same bad quality, and now you're drowning in technical debt. Now, let me try to show you the quick demo. Hopefully, should work. So, I'm going to show you something which I already talked about. So we'll take a look at a messy stakeholder email, something like you will get at 11 p.m. before the sprint planning in the morning that, hey, can you also add this, right? and how the agent passes and structures that, okay? And having something in your backlog like in a user story format. Yeah, so let's take a look at that. So let's go. Okay, so here's an email, and I'll try to send it so you can see that live. Okay, so here's an email. We need to push a feature out by next week, so the fitness mark automatically pushes calorie data to Apple Health and Garmin Connect, because customers are complaining they have to type it in manually after working out. Make sure it works for both iOS and Android users, and do not spend too much time on it. Just get it done. So we can show it at our Q3 review. Also, we need to make sure data privacy rules are handled properly so legal doesn't get a jump on us. Okay, so that's the email. So I'm going to send it, and let's see. Okay, there's no whoosh sound. That's what I was expecting. So here's the inbox. Yeah, I just sent it. So, someone cue that elevator music. Hopefully it'll appear here quickly. Let's see. There you go. Right? So you see that email? So I'm not going to open that. The email is still unread. Okay? So the way I've set the agent, it hunts for unread emails with the content. Okay? So I'm going to run that. And let's see. Let's run the agent. I don't know if you guys can read from the back a little bit, hopefully. Okay, so it's logging into secure inbox via IMAP, hunting for unread stakeholder request, email intercepted and extracted. So now it's extracting the information out of that email, that unread email. And voila, so this is what we have. So this is the draft output. So I'll just read the story. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You guys get the gist. As a fitness mark user, I want the fitness mark to automatically push my calorie data to Apple Health and Garmin Connect so that I can effortlessly track my calorie intake without manual data entry, right? And then you have some acceptance criteria there. But that's not the key thing here. The key is, look at the bottom. It is paused here, awaiting product owner sign off. See, that is not a technology limitation. That's a design feature. What's the boundary rule? The agent drafts, the human decides. So that's the when part. Plausible sounding user story, but does it even belong in the backlog? It's the PO's job to decide that. And then you would either approve it and commit to the backlog or reject it. So I'm going to reject it just for now, Okay. And product owner halted the commit, workflow terminated. Okay, now let's go back to where we were. So, agent stops there, human sign-off required, so the agent drafts and you decide. You as a human, you decide. So the phase one was the human readiness audit. Now this brings us to the second phase. And the second phase is the agent registry. Now what's the agent registry? Well, it's a simple one-pager. Anyone can create it. Nothing fancy about it. But the critical column here is the third column. That's why I've highlighted that in green. So you have a bunch of agents here on the leftmost corner, column. Like I showed you the story drafting agent, right? The agent automates, writes stories, acceptance criteria, but it's the human that decides and negotiates the scope, whether it belongs in the backlog or not. So for example, who's the accountable human here? Me. I was the product owner there. So I get to decide whether it goes to the backlog or not, rather than like 50 possible stories suddenly and I'm having a hard time just going through that. Yeah? Similarly, you may have other agents, like we have test case generators, sentiment analyzer, dependency mapper. So the agent is going to score the team health, but figuring out what that 6.2 out of 10 actually means, we need the human for that. Because the agent cannot read the room, what's happening, what the team is going through. So that's the key thing there. So this is something that is really helpful. And yeah, the red thing. Can you guys see the red thing at the bottom? No named human willing to own it, agent access is revoked. immediately. See, that's not a warning, that's a policy. That's like an automatic thing. No red tape, no one figuring out for a week or so who owns. If there is no actual name, see, that's a role. I'm talking about a name. If the name is not there, the access is revoked. Now I remember, I think it was Gaurav who showed that there was one slide where it was mentioned that for a digital platform, they have thousands of agents running. Thousands. Just showing you 4. So imagine if you have all these agents running and no one is owning any of that. So you need a named human. If it is not there, revoke the access right away. Now, this hopefully allows you to think about the question that I started off with. The agent has already joined the sprint. Now what? Now we learn how to override it. And this is something that helps you to do that. Now, a few things to think about when you go back on Monday. Takes no money because, well, first start with calling out the uninvited Scrum team members, right after the daily Scrum. Have an informal chat with your team to understand it, not to point fingers that, hey, why are you using that or using that? Just to understand that, hey guys, what are the tools that you used last week? Start there, have an honest conversation. And when you say that, then after that, listen, stop the blame game. Otherwise, no one will open up. Run a readiness audit. Now, what does that mean? Remember the 4 parameters that I shared there, right? Definition of done, backlog health, communication, right? So pick any of that dimension and see whether you are in red or green. Focus on the red. And by that, don't start with the tool, start with the human. That's what I mean by focus on the red. Because we think red, oh, we need the tool. No, we need to make sure there is a human that's ready there. Yeah? Going back to what I said earlier, excitement does not equate with readiness. And finally, build your first agent registry. A very simple sheet. Who owns it with the name and what sort of decisions they own. So try this out. So, what's the one thing you're going to try on Monday? Hopefully one of those 3 things. Yeah? And here's a link if you would like to connect with me. Hopefully that should point you there. So if you have questions, you can either hit me up there. That's my website. Or, like I said, I'll be walking around here. So you can have a chat and answer any follow-up questions that you might have. Because it looks like my time is up. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, so how was the session, guys? Yeah. Thank you so much. I request Mr. Rajesh to please felicitate our speaker. And that was a great session. We learned so many things. Come on, guys. Thank you so much, Vivek, for giving us a glimpse into how AI agents may soon become part of our everyday agile trains. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paris.
Thank you.